is the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
Here's a wonderful voice.
God, I love the station.
Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. That's working, that's working. That's better though. Testing, testing. Alright, let's do that. evening, good morning, wherever you may be around the globe, in the chat room, on another planet, or on the other side. This is The Last Frequency, and I am Mike Vara. And, well, we had a nice little late start here. Things didn't want to cooperate, but I got it. We're here. The broadcast is coming at you live from the capital city, Columbia, South Carolina, located on the east coast of the United States. And, well, of course, the website, lastfrequency.com. Hello to everybody listening, wherever you are, including YouTube, who is included tonight. Miraculously, I'll tell you all the hell we've gone through last so many years with that outlet. Whew. But, yeah, we're here. I've got a really interesting guest tonight. I haven't talked to this type of guest in a while, I suppose. I'll be talking with Michelle Welch. Spirits Unveiled is her book, A Fresh Perspective on Angels. Michelle is a highly accomplished, well, in many fields, as an author, psychic intuitive, business owner. And we will speak with her, I will speak with her tonight. In just a little while. Now, I thought I was bringing her on video. I don't know. I haven't been given a way of doing that with her yet, so it might not be a video thing. But that's okay. We're going to move on anyhow. So, social media, I'm on Fakebook. You can find me over there. You know, Facebook. I like to call it Fakebook. I'm on what was Twitter, now X, I guess. I'm there. I'm on social, Truth Social, MeWe, Pinterest, Tumblr, all the above. And so you can find them. They're listed on the homepage of the website at lastfrequency.com. And I'll remind people as we move forward here, right from the beginning, if you like what we do here, please don't hesitate to help out. Got some things coming up, such as the website, which is an annual cost, and it's not cheap, so you know, any help would be appreciated. You can hit the donate button over at lastfrequency.com, and I will thank you in advance. So before I get to my guest tonight, I have a little bit of news and discovery, and I'd like to get into that first. So the sun blasts out highest energy radiation ever recorded. You would think, oh no, what's that mean, right? They say raising questions for solar physics. So apparently this is of no harm to us, though. Just a harm to maybe solar physics. It says in a record-breaking discovery, scientists detected our very own sun emitting an extraordinary amount of gamma rays, wavelengths of light known to carry the most energy of any other wavelength in the electronic spectrum. This is, well, they say, quite a big deal, as it makes the highest energy radiation to ever be documented coming from the planet's host star. Yeah, everything goes through cycles, just like our planet is. It's not climate change. It's just really not. And these rays, again, can't harm us. So why are we talking about them? Because they say that, well, they can play a huge role in this whole solar physics thing, which can affect the future of different types of energies. And why it's important, I guess, because it's our sun, and it's sending out, you know, huge amounts of everything lately. Matter of fact, it had a burp, what was it, a couple months back, and luckily it was the other side of the sun, and it wasn't facing us, because if it was, we would have got hit pretty good. And yes, I am live. It is Sunday night here. It's 10 after 9 on the East Coast, and I'll be bringing my guest on here in just a few minutes. William Shatner calls recent UFO revolutions ridiculous, he says. He thinks they're ridiculous. Apparently, he's been out in space and he knows it all now. But he said it's ridiculous. I think the timing is kind of ridiculous. I don't know what more people want. I mean, they're screaming at you that this whole thing has been real, the UFO phenomena, which they try to rename as Ariel, this, that, and the other thing. But yeah, it's very real. It's been very real for a long time, like from the beginning. And people used to scoff at this conspiracy theorists, and now they're really pushing it hard though now, which makes me wonder why. Why are they pushing it so hard? Tyson, that guy who, talks about the planets and the stars and all that good stuff. He said non-human biologics might not mean alien entities. Well, if it's not from this planet, then I would say it is alien. We're probably aliens. We're probably not from this planet at all. And by the way, the moon now is open for business, and entrepreneurs are racing to make billions. It's gonna be a hell of an industry going on the moon here soon. Apparently, NASA's going back to the moon, and this time they say it means business. Private companies are helping it build lunar transport, GPS, Wi-Fi, and more, all for the moon. Maybe eventually you can get a cheaper apartment on the moon than you can on Earth. This new market, which is worth over $100 billion, could be game-changing for humanity. It would be. Can you imagine? I mean, going to the moon and they got a whole neighborhood built up there. I don't know, though. I mean, if they're involved, I don't know. What good is it, right? They being, them. DOJ prosecutors request protective order after Trump arraignment, citing social media threats. He said, if I'll get you something along the lines of, if they get me, I'll get them, or so, I don't know, something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but he basically was saying that when he became president again, he would, take care of business. That's all he was saying. Or making like he was going to run out and stab him or something. But that's all I got, folks. That's all I got, because we lost a few minutes here, and I want to bring my guest on because I think we're going to have a really good conversation here tonight. And I'll be with you tomorrow night as well. Tomorrow you'll find me on the VARA network and on Rumble. So make sure you get over there and subscribe, like the videos. Please do that here too. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the video if you like it. All right, so let's take a break and then let's come back and get this show on the road here with my wonderful guest. So we'll be back, folks. This is The Last Frequency. I am Mike Vara. We'll return in a moment.
Columbia. Excellent.
Number one means you're always on top. Your number one radio.
You're listening to the VARA Network. Hey, frequencies of all walks of life. Keep up with all things TLF radio by joining our mailing list. Go to the bottom of the homepage and fill in the form. You'll get everything from guest info and show info and other important station-related information. So sign up now.
Crazy ass bumper stickers and more.
What?
You heard me. Crazy ass bumper stickers and more.
What?
Crazy ass bumper stickers and more.
What?
For all your bumper sticker needs, just click on the Crazy Ass Bumper Stickers banner located at the foot of my website, www.lastfrequency.com. That's Crazy Ass Bumper Stickers and more.
You're making me crazy.
I want to talk to you about something very important for a moment here, folks. That is clean drinking water. Now, you can survive without it for about 3 days. How do you know yours is even pure? You don't, but I'll tell you what is. This is the ultimate water filtration solution. It's called Alexa Pure Pro. It is a groundbreaking gravity-fed water filtration system that outperforms all the others for less. I personally stand behind the Alexa Pure Pro water filtration system because I use it.
This is
The last frequency.
You are the resistance.
Welcome to the night. From the Midlands of South Carolina, you're listening to The Last Frequency with your host, Mike Vara. To get questions directly to Mike Vara, you can call in or message Mike on our website, www.lastfrequency.com. Now, here is Mike Vara.
I'm back and ready to get this thing kick-started, I hope. This is The Last Frequency. I am Mike Vara, and I want to tell you a little bit about my guest tonight. So we'll do that in just a moment. The website, lastfrequency.com. Don't forget, go on over, become a member, be informed, and always inform others. Very important to do so. And, you know, on Mondays we hit harder core stuff. You know, I am going to be moving to not only Mondays, but Wednesdays and Fridays as well. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday with The Last Frequency. That's coming at the end of August. It's got to be the end of August now because I just got that worked out with my other job. And I'll still be doing midnights Saturday for Uncensored. And yeah, so that's the plan here. It always helps. I could use the help. I could use the support. So make sure if you got it within your means, please, by all means, go on over and hit that donate button. And so let me try and bring Michelle on here in a minute. Michelle Welch is my guest. And, Michelle is highly accomplished in many fields, an author, psychic, intuitive, business owner, actually a business owner of 3 crystal stores in Dallas, Texas, and is an active lawyer practicing criminal and civil law. She is also a jury selection consultant, grief doula, and a mother of 5 children. Michelle just released her new book, Spirits Unveiled, A Fresh Perspective on Angels, Guides, Ghosts, and more. An inspired understanding of spirit beings. And I want to definitely talk about that tonight. So let's get on with it here. Let's see if we can get our guest with us. I always say let's see because you just never know.
Michelle?
Good evening. Hi, Michelle. This is Michael with Last Frequency. How are you tonight?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. We are live, by the way. I want to thank you for taking time out to be here tonight. I'm looking really forward to talking to you about this angel, ghost, and spirit stuff. Right up my alley. So thank you for taking time out to be here tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I hear an echo back in the phone. Do you hear it?
No, I hear a little something, but it's not quite an echo.
Because I'm hearing myself repeat. I think it just went away. We're good now.
Okay.
Thank you.
You know, it does that often. Like when we first get on a call, there'll be an echo for a few seconds and then it disappears. I'm glad it disappears, though.
Yeah, me too. Because I was like, it's going to be hard to hear myself repeating myself over and over.
Oh, I know. There's nothing worse. Believe me, I'm a audio Nazi. It drives me nuts when things don't sound right. But sometimes with technology, you know, it kicks your butt. So.
Yeah, it does. Most of the time with me, let me tell you. And it's usually user error.
Oh, yeah. Join the club. So tell me a little bit about your background. How'd you get going in all this? I mean, when did you first realize that, you know, were you seeing people from the other side? Or kind of take me back to when it all started for you.
Okay, and the answer is a little bit of everything. I think, from what I remember, confusion. I was really young, and I don't know the exact age. I'm not sure that I remember back to 3 or 4, but it seemed really young, and I would know things. So we went to church a lot, and we sing about angels or different things, and I'd be, and there they are, and I'd point, and I'd always get sent to my room afterwards or get in trouble, or why are you talking so much, Michelle? And I'm thinking, and it was confusing because I'm not saying I always see spirits, but I would see different things. So it was really young. The other thing that happened quite frequently with me is I did have a sense of when, no filter like most children, and you have to learn to have that filter, but I had a sense of when people were ill. And I did have an uncle who we found out later was ill, and I walked up behind him. He was sitting on the couch, and there was nothing behind it, so you could go behind the couch. And I put my hands on his head, and I said, "Why do you have worms in your head?"
Ew.
And I really will. And later he was diagnosed with benzene poisoning, is my understanding, from working at like an oil refinery, and did have, we lost him to a brain tumor. And so, and of course, you know, Michelle, go to your room. You can't tell people that you have worms in your head. There are worms in their head. But so it was very, very young, and I was, and what was interesting that went along with it was a lot of, for having knowingness of other things and seeing lots of things, and it did scare me when I was young. It doesn't now as much, but it did when I was young. I will say that I was also very naive, though. I considered everybody to just be kind, and I was really surprised when the world when you first find out not everybody's kind, and you go through that. It was this protection of sorts of me, this innocence in a way, but yet at the same time a lot of knowingness that came at a very young age.
I see. And so you said it scared you. You know, a lot of times when I talk to other psychics in the past, They often tell me, no, it didn't scare me. I thought it was normal. But and I always thought if it was me, it would have scared me a little bit.
Yeah.
So it did scare you a little bit.
It did for me, because mine was put in a context. So I was going, and I am saying this with all respect. We were going to church maybe 3 times a week, and so mine was there was a little bit of fear to, okay, I'm seeing this, and what is this? And I would really listen from a young age. I really was interested in what I was hearing, and my grandfather was a preacher, and I think that makes a difference of why it might scare you, because if you're hearing things of fire and brimstone and things like that, and then you're seeing things, it might be a little scarier. For just our experiential filters may affect how we feel about it. I thought it was normal, and I was always surprised, like I said, when we'd be singing or reading something and they'd talk about all these things, but then when I would say, well, and there is one right there, people would look at me like I was crazy. So, and I really couldn't reconcile the two that well. But yeah, it did scare me. And I remember seeing, I really wasn't allowed to watch any scary movies or go to anything like, but I remember The Exorcist coming out.
Oh, yeah.
And even 1 second before we changed the channel really fast so that it would scare me. And so many things scared me, but I did have one comforting kind of guide. I describe her in the book as sort of, I don't know, angelic / fairy. I was a child. You put to whatever a child would think that might be, and she would kind of go down my hall every night, but she never went in my room, and my room was kind of scary. But she would say my name almost every night. I'd hear my name, and it really comforted me. But it was very interesting that I started to get headaches and had a couple of things where I fell running in from recess. I think I was in 4th grade and hit a rock. And so I started having these bad headaches, and I would want to keep the light on and all that kind of stuff, like a lot of kids do. And it's interesting because I tell people, it's so funny. My parents tried to get me things to help out, and one of the dolls they got me was the real Annabelle doll from The Conjuring. Not the actual
good Lord.
One. Not the actual. It's a Raggedy Ann doll. It's a life-size Raggedy Ann doll is what it really is in real life. So I still have her. And then I had this creepy clown, and I had one of the what ventriloquists use, the old, and I can't remember the name of that one, but the black hair, and I had one of those. And so I'm like, why did y'all give me such creepy toys to make me feel better?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't know if I mean it's like the Chucky doll, Some people have the Chucky doll.
Yeah.
I gotta say, if my doll started getting up and doing things like that Isabel did, it might be time for the grinder for Isabel.
But but then she put herself back in pieces and come after you. Or put herself back together.
God, yeah.
Yeah. What's funny is she was up at one of our stores. I have 3 stores, and the main store, she was up we had her for a class, just to hold her, do you sense anything? Because she is pretty creepy, and I had her a long time, and there were a lot of experiences in my room that I had growing up, and as far as seeing things, but what was really funny is that she was in one room. None of the workers really liked her. She scared them. So they put her in what we call the bohemian room. And I, at night, would come up here. Maybe I'd forget a book or something, and I would move her and put her at the front, like at the cash register on a stool. And so the next morning when the people came in to work, they were like, "Did you do this, Michelle? I cannot believe it. Take that doll home." And so I'd scare them to death, and I'd move her all around the stores. And so, they were like, "Well, we know she's watching us, but we didn't know she'd move around. I know you did that." And I was like, "No, I didn't do that. She's moving by herself."
I might have had to resign. So was there a point where maybe your parents, maybe some family members started to actually believe you? Did you ever get through to any of them, or did they always just think you were crazy?
Well, a little bit about all. um, so I did have an aunt and a cousin that I have later learned that were much like me, and I have connected with the aunt has passed on, but her my cousin, I guess, is and I found out that the way that they were characterized, and I don't really want to talk ill of anybody about my family,
Sure.
but they were characterized as, not as good of people. Well, I would be in that category too, because and so did I with my parents. No, they knew that I had they knew I was strange and different, and they took me to a doctor, and this is really funny. It was in Longview, Texas, Dr. Clinton, and his prescription for me was orange juice. So I hate orange juice now because apparently that's going to cure you of seeing things. And his orange juice, I guess vitamin C. But they put it in the context where they could feel comfortable, is putting in the context of you've heard the things such as like a word from the Lord, or here's a message or something in a church context. They could be comfortable with that. But if I have it outside of a church context, that's not okay with my family. So they did believe me, because I also believe in like really strong energy. When you talk about the poltergeist, and which means noisy ghost, but there's also young children. Usually it's when females, like preteens, are around, that there'll be some activity, and it maybe is the energy from those preteens. Well, when I'd get sent to my room, I'd be really angry because I was like, what did I do wrong? I'm just telling you what I see right there. It's your problem if you can't see it too. And so there would be times, and I don't want to exaggerate it, but there would be times where books would fall off the bookshelves and things like that from just my anger of just being sent to my room so much and people not understanding me.
Well, I was thinking you got off easy that they just prescribed you orange juice. They could have given you something much worse. So.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And later in life, I had sort of a crisis of who I was, and I was seeing so many things around 30, and it's in kind of a hint about it in the gratitude section of Spirits Unveiled. I was really just getting depressed because a lot of people want to be intuitive. They're like, oh, that's cool, but it's really not so cool when you know things and then it actually happens, and you're like, did I manifest that, or was I really having a premonition or an intuitive hit that it was going to happen? And it's happened recently. Things, I'll just say, this is going to happen, and then it happens. And so it really got me down a bit. And so when I was 30, they did some battery of tests on me, and I was like, well, do I have this? Do I have this? And they were like, you know what? You have enough issues, Michelle. We don't need to add any more to the list. And they were, I literally had a doctor, because I had a lot of depression from it, because I didn't know what to do with it. And the doctor said, no, you are unique in this way. They tested me, and they validated me. And so I put at the beginning of my book, to the doctor that saved my life, because I was really like, what is wrong with me? Because I am so different. And there are so many people like me, and your show, when we listen to your show and other shows or read books, we realize there are more people. Oh, yeah. But it is very difficult when you are around people who are telling you either it's wrong and it's evil, or you're just imagining it. And so, even when you're 30 years old and you still haven't reconciled why do I have this, and what's it about?
I hear that today, and it irritates me when somebody says, "Oh, it's evil." If you're getting contacted by your deceased loved one, that's a demon. That's not. It's like, how do you know who died and left you the all knowing,
be all, know all, omniscient one? Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I had an experience once, and just cut it real short. My visitation, I was told there is a God, and And I thought to this person, I said, you know, what demon tells you there is a God? I mean, I don't know. It's just,
Right. Well, and I think it's really interesting that things that people don't understand throughout history, what do they do with them? They demonize them. That's what they do. Or it must be a witch, or it must be a this, or it must be that. Things that they don't understand. And so I see why they do it, I guess a little bit, but it's kind of ridiculous. And when you said who made you the decider on that, that's what I say about all energy. We as humans, we have maybe individually our moral compass, and then we have social mores. We may have a code of ethics if we're in a group that has a code of ethics. We have our laws, but when we're connecting with other spirit beings, let's say elementals, for example, they don't play by our rules. We aren't the be-all, end-all. Humans aren't the know-it-alls of every spirit being. And I always tell people, if you're going to try and connect with, or even animals, they don't necessarily play by your rules, and you need to understand that their values may not be your values.
That's
and
right.
We as humans think our values are the values, but who's to say they are?
That's right. You're right. And you know, if it wasn't for technology, you know, we probably wouldn't be as far up the food chain as we are.
I agree.
Can you tell us a little bit about how do you experience this stuff? Like, do you entities or I don't know, spirits, angels, all this? I mean, how do you experience? How does it? Is it visuals? Is it just hearing? Is it a feeling? How exactly does it work?
It works differently for different people, and for me, there are times when I see something tangible, like I'll say with my physical eyes as opposed to my mind's eye. But there's also times where I will sense something, and a lot of people will call that seeing. I don't. I make it very clear, so I'm not exaggerating something or misleading somebody into, especially if I'm given a reading like a mediumship reading. I will never say I'm seeing your loved one unless I really am seeing a vision of them. But for me, it comes in so many different forms. I guess when I was younger, it came in kind of like just claircognizance, just kind of like this clear knowing. Something would come into my mind, and I would just blurt it out because that's what kids do. And, they look at somebody who has their socks don't match, and they point to them, and they say, your socks don't match. And they just state whatever's coming to their mind, and they, until they learn manners. Yeah. And so that was kind of me, claircognizance, a clear knowing, and no reason for me to know what I knew. And then as for seeing them, sometimes I will see, and with my outer eyes, my physical eyes, and sometimes just with my mind's eye, I will sense. But I use a lot of it feels as though many of the clairs, the clear seeing, the clear smelling, all of that seems to come, and I think it's now because I'm aware of it, and I look for signs and symbols. And it might be a sign or a symbol. But as far as do I see, can I just look and all of a sudden I'll catch something just sort of going by me really fast? Absolutely. That's one of the reasons I wrote the book, because we were in Vegas, and I don't really do the gambling thing because I'm like,
me either.
I figure it's all going to come out even. Anyway,
I don't have that kind of luck.
Yeah, I know. And so we were walking, and it was just so already with human beings. It was crowded, but then I was sensing and seeing some, not all, just the beings all around. And I thought, this is suffocating, and people don't realize that there are beings around them all the time. When you see these ghost hunters, I think you should be surprised if you don't see something, as opposed to if you do see something. So if they're really someone who says they see or they really can sense spirits, it's, to me, more unusual for there not to be spirit beings. I'm not saying necessarily a ghost, but some sort of spirit being around. It's more unusual for there not to be something around. They're so claustrophobic for me, and I'm not really sure why, but it's just been since I was young. Maybe because I'll listen to them, and I don't just immediately have this phrase, engage before you sage. And it's not to get involved with bad actors, spirit beings. It's just to say, maybe somebody's coming to you or a spirit's coming to you and rattling the hangers in your closet because they really wanted your attention, because they just have something they want to impart to someone, or they want to say, I'm here and I'm your loved one. And so that's why I always say, just ask, what do you want? And see the first thing that comes into your mind. And so it's very, to answer your question, I think it's all different ways that I see, but I try to be really clear with people so they don't think that I'm always seeing a tangible, full-bodied being right in front of me, because that's not always what it is.
I see. And how do you... because I have to imagine there's good and bad in everything, so I have to imagine there's good and bad on that other side too, or even in that psychic realm. How do you protect yourself from that kind of thing, or have you ever dealt with anything like that was negative?
Yes, and a lot when I was younger, I believe, and I don't believe I had the tools to know how to protect, and so that's when I would get. Had chronic migraines and things like that because I saw so much. I didn't know how to protect at the time. That would be prayer for me. Now, I really believe in the different forms of protection. People can use tools such as crystals, or we have sage sprays, or whatever somebody wants to use. But for me, it's really more setting an intention that I am protected. Yes, I'm part of the whole. I'm part of the collective. I really believe in that. I don't understand it all, but I really believe in the quantum physics and the quantum mechanics and how we're all connected. But at the same time, we're unique. And I don't want to pick up on, I don't want to do this cosmic dance with the certain frequencies. I see everything in frequencies, how fast it oscillates. And I don't want to. So yes, I try to protect with different types of affirmations. I do visualizations, but I don't believe those always, and this is where people probably see different than me. I don't believe those always work. So let's say we put a bubble of protection around ourselves. Yeah. There are beings that can just kick that bubble to the bottom of the ocean. I mean, there's some serious beings out there. And so I try to put on more, like call upon my allies and my guides and protectors to really help me and protect me, because I will tell you, when I forget to do it, I can tell that I do not feel as well. I mean, and a lot of us do forget. The ones, just like doctors don't do the very thing that they tell everybody else to do. I tell everybody to put up protection, but sometimes I forget to do it. But I know when I do forget.
It's kind of like the old movies, right? The vampire's going to come in, you protect yourself with a cross, but you have to believe that it's going to work, or it's not, right? And if a werewolf comes through the window instead of a vampire, your cross is going to do you about no good.
Yeah, and so and that's it. And so I think that for me, one of the things that when I talk about the frequency thing, people are like, oh, well, what if I connect to something I don't want to? Most of the time, that's like movie. It does happen. Yeah. There are some times when there are some really scary things. And I have had that happen about a year ago in our house. My husband has diabetes, and there was this just figure of a woman standing over him, and just insidious, just what I call predatory spirit. But the thing that, what do? How do you get rid of a predatory spirit? You take away the prey. I mean, a tiger, if is going for a big steak that you leave out in the backyard, if you take wood steak and you throw it out in the woods, they'll go out in the woods to get the steak. And so if you want to draw something into you, you can. But a lot of it, the frequency of fear will snap you right out of connecting with some of the things you don't want to connect with. TV and movies will act like it's going to happen to you because you've invited them in and all this stuff, but a lot of times the fear will just snap you right out of that connection. Not always, but it will.
Yeah, I once lived in a place that had activity, and I always believed in it. I always knew, it's like I was always interested in this kind of thing, but you don't really know what it's like until it happens to you, and it gets kind of spooky because you're dealing with, in my case, I'm not psychic, so I'm dealing with things that I can't see. I can only see what they want me to see, or hear what they want me to hear. So it was kind of creepy, but yeah, I know that it's a real thing because I've experienced it myself. Yeah.
And it's interesting because when someone hasn't experienced it, I am to the point, it doesn't bother me anymore if they're skeptics. I get it. I don't have any problem with that. I've gotten to the point, I don't proselytize. No one needs to believe what I believe. They can take it or leave it. But I really think that those of us who do share, that there are things that happen and things we see, and there's hope in that too. The way that we can connect with our loved ones, and we can even plan ahead to connect with our loved ones. I have the exercise in the book where you literally map out how you're going to get in touch with each other if when one passes before the other. And it's a great exercise. People enjoy it, just doing it anyway. I've had people do it in big groups, and even strangers when they didn't have somebody to pair up with. The strangers that meet that day at my speech, well, they're the ones raising their hand, sharing, oh, no, we're going to meet at the Starbucks, because she always liked to go to Starbucks, and that's where she'll be hanging out. And this is her symbol. She loves the song so-and-so. And if I hear that song on the radio, that's a sign that she's trying to connect with me. And so there's positives to all these things too, but we always kind of go to the scary stuff first. But I really want people to know that we really can connect. It's not, and we can plan ahead on how we want to connect with our loved ones. And a really neat story was I had a friend do that. Her mother had the end stages of Alzheimer's, and she was saying, trying to get her to calm down, you'll get to go and see Dad, and that really agitated her mom, and she's like, I'm not sure if he'll be there where I'm going or something like that. And I said, why don't you try this, stop telling your mom, and I'm no psychologist, I'm just a psychic, but I said, just try this because it's in my book. And I sent her the page from the book because I don't think it had come out at that point. And I just said, here, just take this. And I said, read these questions. No, Michelle, she's not lucid enough. She's not lucid. We're not going to be able to do that. Well, she did. And her mother lit up. And it was probably one of the last lucid moments she had because she went through that exercise. Where do you think you would meet Dad? What song do you think? What smell would there be of, to know that he's around? And it was a really great exercise for her, and her mom was, I think she passed a couple of weeks later, but she was really lucid when she got to sharing those specific memories.
Yeah, my dad, he had just passed a few months ago. He had his 92nd birthday, and then I think it was just 5 days after that he had passed away. And while he was in the hospital, and he was in and out, like he was in the hospital then they'd put him in a nursing home to get rehab, and he'd end up back in the hospital. Anyways, his last couple months was a hell of a journey, and he was telling the nurses and telling my siblings that there was a spirit that was coming and meeting him in the middle of the night and taking him for walks through the hallways, like he was leaving his body. Now, my dad's a very serious man, never talks like that ever. He was on nothing but Tylenol, so he wasn't delusional from anything. And I honestly believe him.
Oh, absolutely. I know. I can say I know that what I see, and I know that that is true. Especially, when you say he was a very serious, stoic, or you didn't use that word, but person, and not just somebody. He wasn't on medication, but because I see and I know, I've known since I was little. And you said that thing about, well, it didn't scare me because I thought that was always that way. Well, mine were, I always saw some nice things and I saw some scary things. So I knew that. I thought everybody else saw them too, but I thought they were all scared too of the scary things. 'Cause they were scary. And I didn't know how to command them to leave or anything, and so it was scary. But as far as your dad, first of all, I'm sorry about that, but I do believe that I hear that a lot, and when it's almost as though they begin to have, and I think we all do, begin to have that freedom to pull out of our bodies. And an interesting thing that ties into that is that I have found that some of the most quote-unquote psychic people I know either have had the out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, or trauma in their life, and I've had all those, where they kind of pull out of their body for protection, and they kind of compartmentalize. And I'm not saying they fracture into multiple personalities or anything like that. I'm just saying to protect for that moment, they pull out of their body. And it seems to me that some of the most just natural knowingness people that I've ever met, call them psychics, that is a common denominator in many psychics that I meet. And it's interesting that would be an experience right before somebody, go. And I don't even say crosses. I'm like, they go to a different frequency. And I do believe we really can get in touch with our loved ones and any type of spirit being if we figure out how to dial into that frequency. I really do.
Yeah, and sometimes you get lucky and they dial into yours, right?
Such a good point. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And they dial into yours, and we listen. We notice instead of just missing the whole. It's so obvious that someone's. I love that point. They're dialing into you, but are we going to just be oblivious and miss it because we don't believe in it, or there's no way that could happen? And I think that's really, really cool when they do dial in. And I'll have people ask me, well, why haven't I had a visitation from my mom? Why haven't, it makes me feel bad because other people do. And I always tell them, I'm like, you may have, but they also may have, they're busy too, and they love you. And some of the biggest work, and I believe this, I can't prove it, but I think some of the biggest work that's done on our behalf by our loved ones is sometimes when we don't feel they're around. They are working on our behalf and helping us.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. For me, I had visitation from my mother about 4 years after she had passed, and it came. I feel it came because I was kind of at rock bottom in my life at the time. There's a lot of bad things were happening. And she came, and I'll tell you what, everything changed the very next day after that visitation.
How did you feel her? How did you know she was
It was I heard a knock at the window. I was sleeping. I was on the ground floor, and I woke up, I thought, and I went to the window, and I looked back, and I seen myself still laying there. So I assume it was out of body. And when I opened the curtain, my mother was standing there, and she looked. So when she died, she was about 65. She was 65, and in this visitation, she couldn't have been a day over 30, 35. I mean, she looked young.
She was showing her stuff. They do that often. They show themselves in a happy time in their lives or something like that. Yes.
Yeah, and she had no feet. Like it started at the ankles, just kind of hovering there. And she put her hand out. When I put my hand in hers, off we went. And she kind of showed me what she wanted to tell me. She never spoke, and I got it. I don't know. I just understood what she was telling me. And she told me some things were going to come and happen in the coming days. And I'll be damned if by that morning when I woke up, the things that she was telling me would get better started getting better. Everything just started falling in place like dominoes.
Earlier you said you weren't psychic, and I'm thinking, you astral project, and you do see. So yeah, I think you do have psychic knowingness. I think I will take issue with that. You do have, and we all have more than we give ourselves credit for. And that astral traveling is, you probably do that not just with your mom. You mentioned it earlier. It's another thing I talk about in the book is just that's I feel that everyone can do that, and what I do say on that is there's a lot of fear that's put in a lot of books about you need to tether, you don't want to get lost in the astral realms and all these. I'm just going to call it like I see it. I think that's full.
Yeah.
I have not. That's not been my experience. I think people are very, very safe. The only thing that sometimes, just to say, will kind of freak me out, and it doesn't happen anymore, is I used to get night terrors, and I used to get like sleep paralysis, and that is kind of scary when you get sleep paralysis. And a lot of people who are like me, however you want to label it, they do that when they're younger, maybe through about 30, and then it seems to kind of die down. They might, yeah. So it's interesting.
Well, that wasn't my first. When I was a kid, actually, I had a couple of those incidents, not with an entity, but with or a spirit, I should say, but with just myself being out of body. I mean, I remember waking up and getting up out of bed, and everything was changed around. Like nothing was right. The furniture was different. I couldn't leave the room. Like there was two doors, a closet door and the door leading to the hallway. And when I opened up either one of them, I could not leave the room. They were both closet doors. But it was weird because I looked back and I could see myself laying in the bed. I thought I died, to be honest with you, at first. And it was scary. I was my parents' room was the next room over. And usually you don't wake my dad up in the middle of the night unless it's serious.
Same.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
So I said, you know what? I'm going to wake Dad up because I could use a butt whooping right now. And I'll tell you what, I yelled and banged and did what I could. Nobody came. Nothing. It was really strange. And then I was freaked out by it. I switched bedrooms. And within a couple weeks, it happened to me again. And then it never happened again after that.
Yeah, but I guarantee you still astral travel in your sleep. Yeah, because people who astral travel that easily and from the time they're young, I think that's just it's almost like some people can see, some people can hear voices. Some people can pick up on the residue, the energetic residue on an item, and then some people astral travel. And it sounds like you do. And it's interesting because so many people will come into my classes and they're like, I want to know how to astral travel. And I'm like, okay, well, you probably already do if you're that interested in it.
Well, I wish I could control it. I feel like I remember that old superhero, the greatest American hero. He had the suit, but he didn't know how to use it. He'd fly in the walls all the time. That's kind of how I feel. 'Cause I have no control over anything like that. It just happens when it happens.
Yeah. I've been told, because I do astral travel, but not as much as you, and I've been told by people that if you'll set the intention every single night, and this is what I want to do, this is what I want to go, and I'm like, I'm too tired for that. By the time I go to bed, I'm not going to be setting my intention of what I'm doing while I'm sleeping. because I need to sleep. So I have been told by people who do it that they can start controlling it by being very clear that this was their intention. I don't know if it really works, but that is what I've been told.
I would probably fall asleep while I was setting my intention. So, because by the time
exactly.
by the time I get to bed, I'm really ready for bed. So.
Me too. I'm like, I'm not going to be like making the rules of what the sleep has to be like. I'm getting in that bed. I'm going to sleep because I'm tired.
I'm hoping that at some point I have that experience with my father now that I had with my mother, but I don't know if I will or not. I just, but boy, that would be great. That would,
why don't you do that, what I was talking about in my book? I promise you, it's so simple. When people start dating or whatever, psychologists will have you do that. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite? And that, get to know one another. Well, this is basically what scent was your dad? What was his favorite song? Where did he like to go the most? And that's where we're going to connect with our loved ones more than the spooky stuff that people talk about. We're going to connect with them, in some dark place or something like that. It's more, they reveal themselves to us through symbols and songs, and if you start thinking about, what was his favorite scent, and what was his favorite food, that I believe I know that will set the stage for you to have an experience with your father. I really do believe it.
Yeah, one of the things my mother told me when she came to me from wherever she is,
right.
She said to tell your father that he's got plenty of time. It's not his time yet. Well, it was 22 years later that he had finally passed away. So, she was right about that. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, they do have that different perspective. When the case that I talk about in my book, and I do work on cases, and I typically don't put it on my bio, really, like for reading.
Yeah.
I don't advertise that I am. I'm a psychic for hire. I'm going to find the body on a shallow grave on the side of the road.
So you're not a commercial product.
So it's not, but when it comes through, what I was going to say is it's interesting because they have a higher. There was a girl that was missing, and I try to not watch the news or know anything in case I get a phone call, and I will sometimes just for even missing people. And it's always odd how it comes up. I was doing a reading for a girl, and I'll make this quick. She was wanting to know what happened to, I think, her her brother, and then one of her best friends. How'd they pass, and what was it like? And so somebody had told her to come to me. So I was doing the reading, and then all of a sudden I was like, I've got to stop this reading. It's like there's a kid in class. She's probably about 23, 24, I can't tell, maybe a little younger. She's short, she's petite, and she keeps, it's like, in class when the kid raises the hand, pick me, teacher, pick me, pick me,
Yeah.
pick me, pick me, and just relentless. And so I described her, and I said, she has a message for you, and she says she doesn't want to be found because her family is getting along. Well, come to find out, there was, in Plano, Texas, outside of a suburb of Dallas, a girl, this was on national news, on Dateline, a girl went missing, and so I did end up working on that case, but that who happened to come see me that day was one of the people who was on the search party looking for her body because they needed the body to, for murder. They ended up getting it. But, there was always a chance that they might not get that murder conviction if they didn't have the body. And my point of all the story is that the perspective of the beautiful girl whose life was taken too soon, her perspective was, I really don't care if you find my body and you convict him. I'm happy that my parents are getting along and while they're looking for me. That was her perspective. It was a completely different perspective that no one would. I never would have thought of that. And then I was just like, she needs to know. And she said, well, do you know who? And I said, she's got like, and the billboards went up later, and I think they had her with brown hair. But when I saw her and she was doing that pick me, like being pushy, I want to tell this person something. She had blonde hair, because she would dye it different colors. So I've had several cases that I work on, and usually the way it happens when people come through for things like that, it's not about me being so great. It's the fact that they trust the person who's sitting there talking to me. They trust them with the message, and all I am is just the person who tells them the message. I'm not saying Michelle's a worm, I'm just an earthworm and not important. I'm just saying I'm not a big deal. The big deal is the person who's sitting there that has a relationship with someone who's missing or whatever, and turned out she was on the search party. She put a lot of time into it. So I was just the vehicle that was used, or the means that was used to get the message across to someone that she really trusted, which was the girl getting a reading from me for something completely different. And I always think that's important. Yeah.
All right. And if you wouldn't mind, hang on with me for a couple minutes. I want to take a break, Michelle, and then we'll come back. I've got more questions for you. And so we'll be a few minutes, so just hang on with me, and we will be back. Folks, you are listening to The Last Frequency. You're watching it as well over on YouTube. My guest is Michelle Welch, again, a psychic, intuitive, and her new book, Spirits Unveiled, a fresh perspective on angels, guides, ghosts, and more. We'll talk a little bit about those angels and such when we come back. We'll be back, folks. Don't go away, all right? It's Sunday night, and what else you got to do tonight? Sleep, maybe? Well, that's about it, right? We'll be back.
Carolina Radio, Columbia.
Excellent.
Number one means you're always on top. Your number one radio.
You're listening to the VARA Network. Hey, frequencies of all walks of life. Keep up with all things TLF Radio by joining our mailing list. Go to the bottom of the homepage and fill in the form. You'll get everything from guest info and show info and other important station-related information. So sign up now.
Crazy-ass bumper stickers and more.
What?
You heard me. Crazy-ass bumper stickers and more.
What?
Crazy-ass bumper stickers and more.
What?
For all your bumper sticker needs, just click on the Crazy Ass Bumper Stickers banner located at the foot of my website, www.lastfrequency.com. That's Crazy Ass Bumper Stickers and more.
You're making me crazy.
I want to talk to you about something very important for a moment here, folks. That is clean drinking water. Yeah, you can survive without it for about 3 days. How do you know yours is even pure? You don't, but I'll tell you what is. This is the ultimate water filtration solution. It's called Alexa Pure Pro. It is a groundbreaking gravity-fed water filtration system that outperforms all the others for less. I personally stand behind the Alexa Pure Pro water filtration system because I use it.
This is
The Last Frequency.
You Are the
Welcome to the night. From the Midlands of South Carolina, you're listening to The Last Frequency with your host, Mike Vara. To get questions directly to Mike Vara, you can call in or message Mike on our website, www.lastfrequency.com. Now, here is Mike Vara.
I and my guests, we've returned. Breaks are so important, folks. Got to get the coffee and little things that you got to do, and you only get a couple minutes to do them. It's like a marathon. But I am back. You are listening and watching The Last Frequency. I'm Mike Vara, and my guest, Michelle Welch. Great guest too, folks. If you've got any questions, you could get those questions to me. Not doing readings tonight, but if you have questions, you can get those to me through the portal over on lastfrequency.com. There's a portal tab. Just click it. It's that easy. Other than that, you can also, I guess, throw them in the YouTube chat, and I'll try to get them there as well. Other than that, you'd call in, and that's 803-392-4566. But tonight, probably the portal is your best way. All right, so let's get back to it here. Oh, and don't forget, get over to lastfrequency.com. Become a member. It is free. Check out the archives. The Late Night in the Midland archives are getting redone there. They were accidentally squashed from the website. So I've got to go put them all back. And some. I've got probably about somewhere around 2,000 shows. There's a lot to put up there for that. That's what I have handy. And there's so much. Anyways, Michelle, we are back. And listen, thank you again for being here tonight. I'm really enjoying the conversation. Let me ask you this quickly. Did you struggle with your outside of like when you were a child, do you still have struggles with it, with your abilities? Do you often wonder why me or any of that? Or
Yes. Most emphatically, yes. It's in fact, there's some time, I would say I'm kind of in that phase right now. The more things I'll say, this is going to happen, and like I was referring to earlier, a lot of people want that. They want to take the classes, they want to learn to be, and I get it, they want to tap into their intuition and tap into that, but because for me, it's just, there's some things that frankly, I don't want to know. And I already know how they're going to turn out. Now, does that mean everything's there's predestination on everything? No, there's free will. But there are certain things that I just know this is how it's going to turn out. And it makes it very hard for me to invest in even, let's say, for my work, when I know maybe an employee is only going to stay for a certain time, and I just know it. And it's, you just don't maybe find yourself not wanting to invest as much time into someone, even though that's not really right. You just catch yourself feeling that way. So I really do struggle with it. I get it. I know why I have it. It's not that I don't understand. It's just the day-to-day knowing things and if you try to convince people that you know things, well, they think, oh, she's being an ego, trying to say how she knows everything. And I'm like, no, I'm saying I'm not enjoying this, you know?
Right.
And, and I always have that am I creating because I'm thinking it so much? Am I bringing that to pass? Or is it because I'm really having psychic hits that this is what's going to happen? And I do think it's always an interesting question. Whether I'm making that happen because I decide it's true, or the fact that I really do have a knowingness of what's going to happen. But I struggle with it still. Absolutely struggle with it.
You know, I kind of beat myself with that a little bit myself sometimes when I think, you know, there's something I know is evident. It's going to happen. And I tell myself maybe because I'm putting it out there, it is going to happen, you know, and I kind of fight with that sometimes. Probably not as bad as you do, but I fight with it a little bit. Like when my father was sick, I kind of knew. I knew I better get down there. You know, he's 1,000 miles away, so I knew I better get there. And I almost, the night it happened, I kind of knew it was going to be that night, or that day, I should say. But, yeah, anyways, you know, but you tell yourself.
Sometimes it's a good thing, and sometimes it's not fun at all. There's things you just don't want to know, especially because I do have some of that medical intuitive stuff. One of the odd things and one of my mentors picked up on it probably about 15 years ago, because I really wouldn't tell people because it sounds so out there. But I can really oftentimes pick up on cancer, and I'm not a doctor, so it's not things that I can really say. And I can actually smell it. It has a certain smell. And so a mentor said to me, because somebody was at a Reiki group, kind of intuitive session we were having, and I knew this lady, there was no evidence of it. I didn't know her before. She comes in, and I knew immediately. And he pulled me aside, and he's like, what is it that you know about her? And I said, well, she's got major cancer. And he said, so you need to know that this is something that's going to keep happening with you. And I'm like, yeah, it's happened. That I already told you the story about my uncle, you know, and so it's happened. But it's something where it's hard to know what to do with it because I'm not a doctor. And so that the only thing you can really do is say, go see your doctor. And I've had people come back to me, one in particular, he was a big, kind of strong, tough motorcycle rider, and he would come and get just readings from me probably about, 5-6 years ago. And one day he sat in front of me, and I just said, you need to go to the doctor. I'm feeling something on, and I'm trying to decide which, I'm looking at him right now. I'm trying to visualize. It would be on his left. So it's on the left side of his neck. And I said, there was nothing there. But I said, you need to go to the doctor. And I knew immediately he needed to go. And I said, I mean it. You really need to go. But I couldn't. There was no proof of anything. I just said, would you just do that for me? Go to the doctor. And he came in about 4, 5, 6 years later to when I opened the store, and somehow he got back into my office. You know, somebody brought him back. He said, I'm sure you don't recognize me. He showed me the picture, and I was like, I do remember you. He had a big old bandage on the left side of his throat, and he had major cancer, and he died. He said, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. And I said, well, there's a lady I can send you to, and she does alternative things. And he's like, I'll go see her, but I'm just coming to tell you that you really need to let people know because you have a gift. Well, that doesn't feel like a gift so much, right?
Yeah. Who wants to hear that, right?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a gift, especially when you're not a doctor, and so and you really have to be ethical with what you say, and I am very careful what I say to people. But yet I had said, and so I asked him, well, did you go to the doctor when I told you to go? And he said, no, I did not. So, it
well, and a lot of times people don't go out of fear because they don't want to know. They don't want to go through it. They just don't want to deal with it. And then in the end, you end up dealing with it anyway. So.
Exactly. That was my aunt, and that did happen. But that's just an example of how and how ethics tie into it too, because you can be a medical intuitive, and what's so interesting about it that is I'll be like, your heart hurts, and I'll point to your knee. I don't know. I get the information, but I don't. It's not because I know the biology and I know things about a lot of stuff about medicine. I just get the information, and I have that. It's been strong since I was little, and that is a very difficult thing to carry, especially when you're little.
Oh yeah. I imagine it is. It's got to be a very heavy load. So these days, what do you do? Like if you're in a shopping center or something, or a grocery store, and you're in line, and something like that comes up, do you say anything? I mean, because I guess if I was in line, you tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Go see your doctor," I'd probably say, "Yeah, and you should go see yours too."
Yeah, exactly. I don't. I try to, before I go into any places, I do a body scan, mind, body, spirit, emotion, my emotional state, my spiritual state, my physical state, and my mental state. This is my energy before I go into a meeting or anything like that. I really try to do it really quickly. Okay, I have a headache. I'm feeling a little down, maybe a little funny about something. Other than that, I'm good. And then I'll know what's my energy and what somebody else is when I go in. And I just, because of that, I feel like I don't think ethically it is my place to get up in people's business who have not invited me to do so. And I believe that if they're supposed to hear something like that, then they will hear it in some way. And maybe I'm just justifying, but I'm not going to just, I think newbies kind of do that. I'll compare it to law. People that are just out of law school will do that. Everything's a lawsuit. Oh, there's a grape on the floor. That's going to be a slip and fall case. You better pick that grape up. Somebody's, and it's all about that. And people who kind of first happen to their intuition, they want to just tell everybody, walk up to strangers and give them messages. And I just do not feel that that is ethical. I really feel I need permission before I start.
You ever get a spirit that will bother you to tell somebody something? I mean, like, please, you have to tell them. You got to get this message to them. And I would think that before you answer that, if you did make an exception for one, man, you could get swamped.
Yeah, you could, because then they're all coming to you. I think I have had one. It was fairly close. I think the door was sort of already open, in the sense of there had been some talk between me and a friend, an acquaintance, and about her father and his passing, and some questions around that. And then later, the father, I didn't see him. You remember I told you I'd say if I actually saw him or not? I discerned he was around, and I got this information. And he's like, she really needs to know this information, because we had already talked about it, and we'd already opened the door to the discussion and invited him into that discussion. I did tell her. But as far as anything else, we're just random. I get stuff. No, I really haven't had that much, and I kind of set the intention, please just give me a little bit of a break, because I do see things a lot, and it is overwhelming. Like I said, being like on that Vegas Strip, it feels like that. Think of all those humans that are alive, but then think of all the spirit beings that are also out there. I mean, it is claustrophobic. That's how I feel.
Yeah, it brings me to that. What was that? That nun movie with Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh yeah, Sister Act.
Yeah, Sister Act, and all the all the spirits were surrounding her, and
yeah, it's crowded. Yeah, those were good movies. Those are funny.
Yeah, those are days. Comedy could be comedy. Unfortunately, today people aren't laughing too much. So now you're training to be, what is that, a death doula?
It's a death doula, and I have gone through some initial training some very basic courses, and then I took a beginner, some basic, just 101s, and then I took a full, like, I don't know if it was 6 to 8 weeks of learning about becoming a death doula. What that is basically where we have midwives for children, babies entering the world.
Okay.
Death doulas help people exit their physical body, and they can also help families. It depends on how far you want to take it. The reason I took the class, number one, there were some gory details that I found very interesting, just to be perfectly honest. I wanted to learn about, I didn't know that you're not required to be embalmed, and I wanted to learn about all that. And I wanted to learn about how the funeral homes are really owned by only like 2 or 3 in the country, and then they name them all these different things. So that stuff was all interesting to me, but I had a better purpose. Because I see, and I can talk to, not always, but often, to loved ones of their clients. I'm very empathic, and I'm a very compassionate person, but I found myself not being as compassionate because I was like, well, they're fine. You're, and I wanted to learn to have a little more, to be genuine in my response to someone when they say, I lost my mother or I lost my father. And I'm being hard on myself, to be honest, because I am a very caring person.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like it was always so genuine, and I didn't really know what to say. And so I wanted to I wanted to study grief a little bit more, and I got so much more out of it than I expected. But I did also, because I feel like we are going to start talking about death more than we used to. I feel like that's already opened up in the past, like 2 to 3, 4 years. And that was just something important. But death doulas, they can do anything from walk you through end stages to actually, it is legal to have the body in your home for a certain amount of time, like they used to do in the front parlor.
Yeah.
And and then also they went through the ways of what's really natural, and as far as you can be a plant or a tree or whatever. And it was just all interesting. One of the most interesting things, I'll make it fast, was one of our first exercises was to look at our heritage and then look at how they used to do the funeral services for that culture. And that was really, really fascinating. I got out my 23andMe, and I was like, okay, let me see which one I can pick. And so it was the Viking, the Nordic, and how they would put them out to sea, and then they do a torch, and they shoot it out onto the ship and burn it. So, we got to talk about that, and we actually honored our ancestors. So it was really interesting.
I see. And
and did I become more compassionate? I'm not sure. I hope so. Yeah.
Well, when you know that the person who is now gone from this plane, when you know that they're okay, it's kind of hard to be too sad about it. I mean, I guess the sadness comes on our part because we're going to miss them because they've left. But I think on their part, once they're there, I guess when you're on your deathbed, it has to be scary. I hope everybody gets a visit. I spoke to a woman who volunteered in hospice for 30-some years, I think it was. And she would talk with people who were on their deathbeds, and she says they would all describe somebody coming to visit them, whether it be a religious figure or a family member. And, all of them would had somebody, has interactions with somebody. So, I guess that would make the process much easier.
Yes, wouldn't it? And I think the minute we... someone said this about my parents, because I'm like, it makes me sad that they think that I'm, doing things so wrong, but their beliefs about mediumship and things like that. And of course I want my parents to be around as long as possible, but they said, my friend said, the minute your parents pass, they're going to know that you're okay. That they're not going to be without you for eternity. But it's very interesting to try to, and sad really, to try to, yes, it's more about us missing our loved one. The loved ones are fine. I know that, but I don't ever want to be flippant about it when I'm telling people that.
Yeah, right. It's the dying part, I guess, doesn't bother me as much as the how I'm gonna die part. It's if we could all just be youthful and energetic until the end, and then just check out, would be great. It's like just punch the card and say, all right, I'm ready, beam me up.
Exactly what I was thinking. Yes, I'm sorry, that is exactly the word for word. But I was thinking, just punch the card.
Yeah.
I'm punching out now. I'm clocking out. Yeah.
So your psychic abilities, they must help a lot in this field, this death doula.
They do.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I haven't used it, as much maybe yet. I haven't explored how it's going to be used for me, but it's how you're exactly right. How it's helped me is to be able to talk to people when I am doing any type of speaking to their loved ones. And for me, it's something I always want to point out that a lot of people don't, that are mediums. A medium can pick up information from, okay, so I'm really talking to my or let's say a client's grandmother. Like I really am connecting with them, okay? That's one thing. So I'm talking, and I can say, your grandmother's telling me this. Or I can pick up on what the client is thinking, and I intuitively pick up on what they're thinking about their grandmother. And I am always honest. I'm like, I'm not really talking to your grandmother, but I can feel that you're wanting to know this. So that's really just a regular reading. The third way you can pick up on it is all of a sudden I'll just get a rush of intuitive information, whether it's, hearing, seeing, however, just a thought that comes into my mind. And that doesn't mean I'm seeing their loved one, but I'm getting a message from somewhere about their loved one. And so there's three ways. And a lot of people, I think to me, it's integrity to tell the person. I'm not always going to say I'm speaking to your mother or your grandmother unless I really am. And I will make that very clear when I'm giving somebody a message, because my grandmother lived to be 106, and that is my standard. I want to treat every person the way, if somebody gave me a message that was about my grandmother, they better not be playing around. They better really be serious and know what they're talking about.
Here's what I've done with deaths like that. My mother, my father, my grandson who passed away. There's certain things I said to them, either on their deathbeds or at their funerals, that, if somebody is really connecting, I would expect them, that was kind of my code thing. It's like,
Right.
Yeah, so if they're coming through, they'd know what I said, right? So
right.
That's kind of how.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get that kind of that testing of. I guess probably and that'd be that first thing if they're really coming through. But all of a sudden, if I'm just getting some information to give you, then I could be honest and say, that's not coming. That I don't know, but I am getting some information to give you legitimately. But your loved one is actually not coming through to me. And I just think it's better to just be honest with people. It's okay. It doesn't make you not a good reader or not a good at your job. It's just they're not. And so I'm always been very, very fair with how fair is not the right word. Very, very transparent with the way I'm receiving my messages. And I think that's why my clients trust me.
Yeah, and that's great, because there's a lot out there who say, well, I want to contact Michael Jackson, right? And they'll oh well, you're in luck, we have him right here. It's like yeah, he moonwalked right in, didn't he? So
Yeah, I don't ever say, there's the people, and I'm not making fun of them. It's who am I to judge?
right.
But they'll say they channel Kurt Cobain, or they channel Michael Jackson, or they
Or
channel.
Jesus.
I don't. There's nothing fancy like that with what I do. It's what I just said.
Yeah, and I'm not
It's,
saying that
yeah,
they're not channeling the. I mean, maybe they are. I don't know, but I would
maybe. Who
think,
knows?
I don't know. I would think that it's a little more sacred than that. Like me calling up your deceased family members. I don't know as though they'd answer the phone right away.
Exactly. And I think for me, integrity and ethics is so important in what I do, because I want to be viewed as a professional. People will ask me, well, why don't you go back to law? Why'd you do this? Why would you? And I'm like, because I see this as a very high calling. It's not easy to do what I do. But I also want to bring a lot of professionalism to what we do, as opposed to just being a trick and what's that phrase? Like a circus trick,
Yeah.
a circus show. And it's legitimate, and you really can help people, but you have to really be honest. And it's not smoke and mirrors. I remove the smoke and mirrors, and I just say, this is how I do it, and this is what I'm getting.
That's that's how I've run my radio show for almost 16 years. There's some out there who will, whatever it is, if it'll get views, they'll latch onto it, And I've kind of tried to be more serious and I'll tell you, you don't get as many shiny stars when you don't have the wild stories, but you do get the respect of many when you keep it real. So.
And I agree with that. And that's even in my book, when I told the story of the murder case. There were so many, and another girl that I wrote about, a friend of mine who was very mistreated and chained. Her and her brothers were chained, in the heat in Houston, basically eating out of dogs, just horrible things. I didn't put these salacious details of every single thing. I really wanted it to be about, and yeah, the book would be more interesting, frankly, but I didn't want to capitalize on the pain of others. I really wanted to say, yeah, they went through some really hard things, and yeah, it was really sad that this girl was murdered and taken too early. But the point of doing it was, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to give shocking information so I sell more books, or am I trying to say, this is how we can get in touch with those who have passed, and that everyone can do it? And you can go to a medium, somebody like me, but you also can learn to do it yourself if you say, for instance, what do I think their favorite smell was? And if I happen to, or if a song comes on, their favorite song comes on the radio 3 times in a day, that's a pretty good sign.
Yeah.
They're probably trying to get hold of you.
Especially
right?
if it's an outdated song.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what inspired you to write your books? So you've got 2, correct?
2, and the third is due.
Okay, yes.
I'm on the second draft of the third one. What inspired me was I see things a little differently, and someone said to me that they were reading along and they were like, wait, what? Rewind? Did she just say that? I just don't buy into I read every book that comes into the stores, and we have quite a few books, and it was just the same thing over and over again, which is fine if I think that's how it is, but and it may be right for somebody else, but that's not how I saw things. They would say things such as, you can't have a human being as a spirit guide, and that was like just a given. That was just a rule, and everybody accepted it, and nobody ever asked. I believe you can, and so, because I've seen it happen, and because they may be in a parallel universe, they may be completely different than they are right in the universe we're in at this moment. They may be, and so there's so many things with the time and all that I just don't think we have to put such tight rules on things. And so why I wrote the books was I even got this from Llewellyn, from my publisher, Watch Your Tone, because I would get kind of emphatic about things. I'd have to come back and rewrite it and be a little bit nicer about it. Not that I was right. It's just that that's not how I saw things. And I think we see, like, for instance, our spirit guides, we see them the way, we're all energy. Everything's just energy. And we see them the way we need to see them. They meet us where we are, what we need at the time. And it doesn't make one person more advanced than another person. It's just what we need. And I wanted to write about that. And I wanted to write about how anybody can get in touch with these different beings, and the fact that sometimes you just need a release when you're feeling like, I'm going to kind of go nuts because there's all these beings around me. I might as well just write a book about it. And that's kind of how the second book happened. I was like, are y'all ready for this? And I said, it's not going to be an encyclopedia of spirits, because I don't know all the spirits, and they seem to be changing on us. Even angels seem to be changing about how they look. About 4 years ago, I called a friend of mine who's very, very, very knowing. She's a Pisces, I'm a Cancer, and a Scorpio moon, and we're just very psychic all over our charts. And I said, are you seeing angels in like a little bit different way than you used to? And she said, I'm so glad you called. I thought I was the only one. And so it was just sort of changing. There seems to be a little bit of a shift. And so that's why I just want to write and say, we don't have to agree. It's fine if we don't agree. But maybe put it out there that I'm not going to just repeat everything I see in every single book if that's not my experience.
So then, obviously, angels are real, which I have no doubt, because I have another little tidbit here. My mother, on her deathbed, probably days before she died, pointed up at where the ceiling and the wall met in the hospital room and said, "The angels are here. Do you see them?"
Yeah. My grandmother did that too.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's seen them. I believe she just said, "Oh, never mind. Just make sure your father takes his medicine."
Oh.
Yeah. So she probably was like, "Oh, here they go." I believed her though, and it stuck with me all these years too.
Absolutely. I mean, every major religion, the 4 or 5. When I say major, the most populous, numbers of people, they all believe in angels. They just believe different things. So Gabriel or Gabriella brought the message of Christ's birth and told Mary, you're going to have a child, and then went to Elizabeth about John the Baptist. That same angel went to Muhammad and delivered the Quran, or so it said. So they both believe in angels. They just believe a different thing about the angels. So that is something that I think it may be now like 80% people that believe there are angels. That's a pretty high number.
Yeah, it is. And I think just as many people, and I kid you, believe now that we are not alone in the universe. And so, have you ever had a connection in that manner, like extraterrestrial type thing? I don't want to put you on the spot with something like that.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
No. I have, but it's not one that was a traumatic one. I do believe, I've talked to people who have had traumatic experiences. I know people kind of make jokes about those things sometimes, but I have, and it's not really a joking matter when it is true. And you can tell they're traumatized. Mine, not so much. I have always, never for a second, questioned if there were other beings here with us. I think some of us are hybrids of those, and they're here. And I also, this is going to sound really out there, but there are some that really can shapeshift. And you can watch their eyes, and you can tell they're doing it. And I'm not going into the conspiracy theories or anything. I'm just saying I'm not.
I know you're not. Believe me, I'm on board with you here. Yeah.
Yeah, so when I wrote it, I was very careful not to the book because I started writing about some that people were saying, at the time, and I was like, I'm not getting into all that. But I just it's another book for another day. But here's an interesting thing. My dad will not admit this true, but it is. My grandfather, we had his Bible, and he was an Assembly God preacher. This is a little charismatic. They'd have these tent revivals, and there was somewhere, and I believe it was like in the middle of probably like in Proverbs or Psalms or something. And my grandfather wrote to the side that there are aliens. And I told and told and told. I literally saw it, and I think I talked to him about it, but I know I saw it in his Bible, and so which is so interesting, right? I mean, because he's been gone for a long time, and so it just never crossed my mind not to, because I think it's such arrogance of humans to think we're the be all end all. And like we said at the beginning, we're the deciders. And so it doesn't surprise me. As far as my encounter, it's more what I've seen. I wouldn't say I've had any sort of encounter where I've been abducted or any of that kind of thing. It's more just what I've seen. And when I did see, there's this big in the skyline in Dallas, there's a big building that's outlined in green lights. It's a really pretty building at night. It helps the skyline of Dallas be really pretty. About 3 years ago, it was really quiet. Everybody was, going home during a certain time. They were, everybody's supposed to be home, and so we were headed home. Roger was in the car with me, and I looked up, and I've always been interested in the protectors of churches, like the gargoyles over in Spain, and the angels. They'll have them on the corners of the church, and a lot of times they're gargoyles, and they're protectors. Well, I looked up at the top of that building, and there weren't four. It wasn't like there was one on every corner, but there were two, and they were huge, and they were angels, but at the same time, they did not look like angels anymore to me, and I saw them completely differently than I've seen them before. And I asked Roger, I was like, do you see that? Do you see? And I thought, please say you do. So I'm just not, please just say you see it. And he's like, I don't see anything. And he does see. And he's like, no, there's nothing up there. I'm like, and so that's when I later got a hold of my friend. I was like, are you seeing them differently? And she said, yes, I'm so glad you called. So it's very interesting to just know that things do shift, but I also think that we shift in what we're willing to see. And so sometimes we'll be shown, like I said earlier, a spirit guide may need to look like, for somebody, they may need to look like John Wayne, coming in to save the day on their horse or whatever. And somebody else, it can look like a ball of energy, just zappy energy, which is what we are, and that's just fine for that person. They kind of meet us where we are, I believe.
So we got a few more minutes. I'm going to give you the floor to get out what you like here in just a minute. But a couple more questions for you. What's most important for the audience here tonight to know about psychics and psychic abilities? What would you say is most important?
I think the most important thing is to know that that I could go in so many directions, but from a personal, if anyone thinks that they have any abilities, or they immediately say, like you did, I'm not psychic. I think everyone does have some. It's just whether they're developed or not. I think we all have a knowingness to us that we've been given, whether it's a fight or flight, instinctive gut, I need to get out of here, this doesn't feel safe. We all have levels of it. And as far as if somebody wanted to go see or talk to a psychic, I'd say always be careful. If they say only come to me, if they're possessive, if they won't give you pricing, you just want to go to someone ethical. Don't ever pay anybody to get curses off or anything like that. That is not ethical. Don't ever do anything just don't fall for that. And I'd say the most important thing for me, my platform, if I was for psychics, is I want us to be professional and I want us to be very ethical. So it's real. It's a struggle for some of us, but all of us have a knowingness at some level. And sometimes all you need is just somebody to validate that for you. And that may be why you talk to an intuitive or a psychic. And they may just, all they're doing is saying, you know what, you're correct. You already knew this. And they're just validating that for you.
Yeah, I mean, just like maybe it's a level of where the light turns green and something tells you don't go, and you're glad you didn't, or maybe you're going to get on a plane that day, and all of a sudden at the last minute you decide not to, and something happens, God forbid. That kind of, it could be to that level, or it could be to yours, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And the other thing I would say is the word psychic has a bad connotation. I decided to kind of reclaim that word. I stayed away from it for a long time. I was like, oh, no. It's that neon sign, they're going to charge you $5,000 to get that curse off thing. I mean, I don't want to be associated with that. But the word psychic is the belief in something unseen. It's very close to the word faith. And so I decided, you know what, I'm just going to reclaim that word. And so that's, but always look into who it is that, and get recommendations. There's a lot of professional people who really take their craft very, very seriously. Yes. At our stores, we have more continuing education and ethics training than I have to be a lawyer.
Fantastic. So, last but not least, websites, books where people can get them. Anything else, appearances, I don't care. Whatever you want to throw out there, the time is yours. And I thank you so much for being here tonight. I've really enjoyed talking with you.
I thank you so much. So it's michellewelch.com, and I have 2 books already, The Magic of Connection, and then the one we've talked about a lot tonight, Spirits Unveiled, by Llewellyn Publishing. I also do readings, I do energy work, and it goes in spurts of whether or not I have time. So getting on the schedule, just keep trying, and you'll get on the schedule. And I do teach classes, and I have 3 stores. They're called Soultopia, and they're just, each one's unique. And I also own, with my husband, 3 tarot/divination conferences that are really fun. There's one in Portland coming up September 29th, I believe, through October 1st. And those are really, really fun and good from beginners to professionals. So we have one in Portland, one in Dallas, and one in New York City that we just got. It's called the Reader Studio. It's the premier conference, and so I do a lot, and I keep busy, and I like that. So.
All right. Well, great. Well, Michelle, listen, thank you again for being here. You're welcome on anytime. Shoot me an email. Anything new comes up, or not even. Just come on and schedule a show. We'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate
Absolutely. The pleasure's all ours. So have a great night. Have a great weekend. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good night now. All right, folks, there she goes. Michelle Welch, www.michellewelch.com is the website. And again, the book, Spirits Unveiled, A Fresh Perspective on Angels, Guides, and more. So that's going to conclude our Sunday night show. I want to thank each and every one of you, wherever it is you may be, around the globe, in the chat room, on another planet, on the other side. This has been a broadcast of the last I almost said uncensored, the last frequency. Well, listen, everyone, thank you so much. VARA Network, that's where it's all at. And, we'll see you here tomorrow. Not here as in YouTube, but here as in the VARA Network. Have a good night. Keep your eyes posted to the sky because you never know what you might see. And keep your ears posted to this broadcast because you never know what you might learn. In the words of Mr. Skeptic, let me clear my throat. Good night, everybody.